reiterate how pleased we are that you are all here to celebrate Dawn's 20th anniversary with us in Cape Town, in South Africa, and in Africa, the home of the new Secretariat of Dawn. Don't, my little pauses are not always for applause. I haven't quite got to that stage of rigging it as yet.
I think there's something that you call the First Lady. I think I've come to regard it as an F word. And therefore, you end up with a microphone when everybody else is sitting around. No, I'd like to welcome you all really to South Africa, since they give me that position. But to say really, we are pleased with the continuation really of the looking at alternative methods of redesigning this world through women and women's eyes.
In 1975, at the very first women's conference that launched the decade, the word feminist was associated with white, North American, middle-class lesbians, right? And so in Nairobi, for third world women to use the word feminist and to have feminists on all their panel titles was really quite revolutionary. In a sense, we redefined the meaning of the word feminist. We reclaimed it and we redefined it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the history of colonialism. It's the history of arrogance, the history of assumptions by Northern organizations, very much including Northern women's organizations, that we somehow had the knowledge or had the skills. There was a long learning curve about, realizing that, wait a second, when it came to organizing, when it came to understanding the power dynamics in the world, we were primitive.
I think I've been a part of Dawn in an aligned way, like on the side growing up with Dawn Women Way. And I feel very honored to be here. This is a poem for African feminists and for the African feminist movement. I think there are two women in here who were at that meeting in Zanzibar, and I want to take out of it the militancy and the beauty of those women. Glide the figure 8 across these Banyarwanda hips, these Mswahili, Creole, Ashanti, Xhosa. Ride the slow flex and turn, mold and build, breathe and transform. The rhythmic rebirth of Africa's daughters. Mwalimu, Madiba, Lumumba, Nkrumah. Asanteni sana. But it is our turn now. Incandescent butterfly woman and river spirit, rise. Impala and ocean mother, rise. Storyteller, basket weaver, banana seller, rise. Mama, dada, mother, sister, rise. Sister, comrade, sister, fighter, sister, lover, sister, friend, rise. Sister, comrade, sister, fighter, sister, lover. Sister, friend, rise. Sister, comrade, sister, fighter, sister, lover. Sister, friend, rise. Woman, rise.
And we're very pleased that Devaki could be here with us. Hamida Hussain from Bangladesh. Thank you, Hamida, for coming all the way to be with us. Nilma Aguiar from Brazil. Nilma was a former coordinator of Dawn, general coordinator. And Vivian Wee, a former coordinator for Sustainable Livelihoods.
You know, someone came to me and said, you have to meet this incredible feminist economist from India who's doing the groundbreaking work on a feminist critique of Malthusianism. So this is Gita Sen. And I met Gita, and she was formidable. Very soon thereafter, the NatConfest, the National Conference and Festival of Women in 1990, and a moment I remember so vividly, there was a discussion of how do you resist donor-driven programs, donor agendas, and it was led by Gigi Francisco. And she was brilliant on this. I had never even thought of this problem. And she had a strategy that today we still have to put into place. Well, of course, in the late 80s, like so many of my friends, we learned about development, we learned about structural adjustment from Sen and Groen and the writings of Peggy Antrobus. And then in Brazil, going in an airport from Rio de Janeiro to Sao Paulo, and there was Sonia Correa. And everybody said, you have to meet this Sonia Correa. And there she was. And she was really intimidating. And I thought, oh my God, what a powerful intellect. Sonia, who brought to me the sense of how reproductive rights and sexual rights has to be put in a broader framework and also annexed to Foucault and Derrida. And then in the Iraq project that we developed in the 1990s, I met Bene Maldonado. And Bene, in our very first meeting, put on the table the powerful African women's sense of health in the framework of reproductive and sexual rights. So all of these intellectual touchstones, but I do want to say that Dawn, it seems to me, arrived at its true moment of development and maturity in 1998, in a famous meeting of HERA in Cocoyoc, Mexico. At this meeting, which was to strategize for ICPD +5, and this occasion would mark, I think, a new level of political understanding and practice. And I wanted to share with you some images of this new level. So here we are.
To understand Dawn, you have to go right back into the Decade for Women. Devaki invited us to come together in 1984 on the eve of the final conference of the decade to reflect on what we had learned about development over the 10 years. All of us had experience of being part of international networks where the Southern voice was swamped. Because women from the North had much longer history of women's organizations, and certainly had the resources, they were able to, all the publications were coming from the North. We didn't, it was all very Northern dominated, and we felt that the power of what we had to say really was because we were South.
Since they were preparing for Nairobi, poor Kate, being Ford Foundation and having to do something for Nairobi, had brought the format that the UN had used to get countries to provide report cards for the Nairobi conference. So she put it up. And initially, I remember we went on to that is women equality, employment, equality wages. Suddenly, Fatima Mernissi, and she's now witnessed it. I was in Morocco 3 months ago to meet her, got up and said to Kate and to Geeta, who was helping Kate, tear down all those charts. And this is no way to look at it. And then we moved to the other little room and sat on the floor with Aruna Roy and others. And then came this idea that what are our regional crises? So that's how the idea of crisis, the word crisis, emerged from that tense moment when we did not like this framework, but we didn't know the other. So as soon as the Africans began to speak about food crisis, hunger, then the Latin Americans said it's debt. And we were searching in Asia, what is our crisis? Because really we don't have that kind of clear identity in my view, except we said poverty.
So we realized that these crises were linked, and the platform document that we produced reflected those linkages between the different crises. But the other thing that the platform document did, and I think that this was what was particularly important about that platform document, it located the whole thing within the macroeconomic policy framework, which was something new for the women's movement, to look at those macroeconomic policies. And to see those policies as reflecting a kind of neocolonialism. It had such an impact that at the end of the conference or the NGO forum, we thought, well, we need to sort of institutionalize this. We need to set up a network. And that's really how Dawn was started.
And now is abortion. This woman using Cytotec went to a hospital in Rio. They left her alone in a room with another woman. She had cramps. She went to the bathroom. The baby sorted out. It was 5 months pregnancy, more or less. The doctor came and said, this is infanticide. Took her to clean her up. When she got back from the surgery room, the police officer was there. She was handcuffed in her bed.
What?
She was handcuffed in her bed, and she was taken directly from the hospital to the prison. And this is just not one case. So I'm trying to say is that what is happening at the level of parliament is not disconnected from what was happening in society. In addition to the fact that the Catholic Church, as everywhere, has had a very strong influence at the high level of policy, we have had this expansion of evangelic people in the country. Their numbers have tripled in the last 20 years, and they have political power now in the parliament.
I just whispered so much for left-leaning Lula.
He's a Catholic person. He has been raised as a leader with the support with the church, so it's personal. But on the other hand, when he starts doing those things, it's a political calculation, and he's counting numbers. And we don't have numbers, and these guys have numbers.
A mí me parece que para América Latina, por lo que está pasando en el Brasil, posiblemente tengamos otro gobierno de izquierda, en el Uruguay, con Tabaré, y en Bolivia se puede generar un proceso así también. ¿Qué significa en este siglo XXI ser de izquierda en relación a los derechos de las mujeres? Yo creo que tenemos más expectativas en relación a nuestros derechos de las que debíamos tener, como si estas alternativas fueran a dar respuesta o de continuidad o de cambios, que creo que no es así, por lo menos en tan cortos tiempos.
Ninguna te garantiza de por sí que eso va a estar en la primera plana de su agenda política. Entonces, a mí me parece que también tiene que ver con que, bueno, también hay que pensar cuáles son las estrategias en los nuevos escenarios políticos.
For me, hearing the experiences in evolution of sexual and reproductive health issues from other places also gives you insights into how perhaps you can galvanize the movement in your own area, in your own country, along certain lines, having in the background or as guide experiences that other women have shared with you.
Why do women continue to face the kinds of challenges they do? Dawn gives answers in the sense that it does have analysis linking the economic, the political, social, and so on. And so it provides the tool for you to be able to understand what is happening and to therefore be able to make a difference or make your own contribution.
Our struggle over these 20 years, I think, has been to try and see the ways in which we could, in fact, come to an understanding of the social agreements under which we live, and looking at it from a feminist lens, which is where the project for this new book, which we promise, don't pay for it yet, will be coming out, called Remaking the Social Contract.
If you look into the literature, there are very few references to feminist thinking of social contracts, and particularly from the South. There's Carol Patterman and others, but I mean, in the last 10 years, with few exceptions in Latin America, we have not seen a strong investment in that, the exploring of the notion of social contract as a frame that could be useful, productive, and creative to ground our thinking, but also our political action.
Yeah. Hi. Well, I guess there are three things that I'm grappling with as I sit here. One is the concern of everyone about the role of the nation state in a globalizing economy. And then the question of how do you hold the current bunch of bandits, or near bandits, as Sonia would say, in the international economy accountable. And I was thinking that you're looking at a kind of capital contract, where corporations are being given rights of entry and exit, the right to be free of regulation, and the right to maximize profits unrestrained. And that comes in many technical terms. In the WTO, we talk about national treatment of corporations.
The way in which lives and livelihoods, I think, are affected by this, by the new social contract. And this comes out from some work I've been doing about a woman in the cut flower business. And you can see in Africa and Latin America and Central Africa, the way in which the labour contracts were there have been really undermined, the casualisation of work, the way women cut flower workers in particular are affected by different regulations regarding environmental changes to the pesticides that they use, etc., etc. So there's a really nice, I think, connection between shifts in the way labour standards have changed, environmental regulations have shifted, and the impact that has on their bodies.
I think it's kind of interesting that you've picked up this term, social contract, and in a way revived it, because that term also came out in a particular historical moment, and that was the rise of the nation state in Europe after feudal despotism. What followed feudal despotism was that the new nation state in Europe needed legitimacy. And it was this legitimacy that made them agree to the social contract. I think we can't even just talk about the nation state, because actually what we see now is a process of state capture. The state, in many cases, not all, many states have become transnational states.
The main issues that I think need to be looked at is neoliberal policies of globalization, militarism, and extremists. I think extremisms of various sort. We're not looking at the cross interaction. How do fundamentalist forces work with or against the globalization ones? I know at home, the only political mainstream voices which are up there criticizing globalization, the neo-imperialism, etc., are the right-wing political religious groups. They are getting resonance. Obviously, amongst people, we're not being able to respond to that, whether it's feminists or any other social movement that I can see so far.
It's very clear from the conversation that we can't look at individual social contracts. They're nested. So what would be interesting to know is how, when people talk about linkages, what is the means and what is the process in which these are nested social contracts? Who's making contracts with whom? What are the combinations of social contracts that Bush and the Pope and the Vatican are creating together, right? And at what levels do they operate?
To Carol Pavement, the idea of a feminist social contract would be an oxymoron. It would be a contradiction in terms. What the social contract connotes is intrinsically first individualist, yeah? Proprietary, meaning it is about property ownership, masculinist, because only men and patriarchs can be recognized individuals who are have the capacity to own property, and as many of you have pointed out, nationalist. The framework of community is the nation state, and I loved that Jimena was pointing out the nation state is fundamentalist.
It's about, most of our states are not one nation. They're many peoples. So if there's going to be a feminist social contract, it has to challenge every single one of these assumptions.